All right, so I wanted to go over the information that was on the assessment that we did last week. Some of you did really well, others of you struggled, but you know what? That's okay. Now I can help you with these things. So, this is a slide of all the questions that I asked, and we're going to go through each of these questions one by one. So the first one, circle the time signature in red. So you can see over here in my piece of music, I circled it, but then I also made it bigger so that you can see a little bit better what that looks like. So the time signature shows at the beginning of the music, and there's two numbers, one on top of the other. The top number shows how many beats are in a measure, and the bottom number shows what note gets the beat. Now, we'll talk more about this another time. I'm not going to get too much into detail on that, but just know that if a 4 is on bottom, the quarter note gets the beat. So, for example, if there was a 3-4, there would be 3 beats in a measure. Now, the time signature can change sometimes in the middle of music. So if we ever have a piece where the time signature is changing, I will show that to you. But just know right now, it's at the beginning of the music. There's two numbers, one on top of the other. The top number being the most important, telling you how many beats are in a measure. So on that note, we know that there's 4 beats in a measure in this song. Next, exactly what I was talking about. How many beats are in a measure in this example? So again, we're going to look at the time signature. It's here at the beginning. Our 2 notes, one on top of the other. The top note is a 3. That means there's 3 beats in every measure in this example. That's how you are able to tell. All right, the next question, circle the treble clef in green. Again, you'll see I have it circled here, and then I have it made larger here so you can see it a little bit easier. You'll also see that there's a treble clef at the beginning of every line. So at the very beginning, we have just the piano playing. The next stanza, which is what this is called, you can see from here all the way down to here is one stanza. So they have treble clef for the singers. They have treble clef for the piano. The treble clef is usually where the sopranos and altos sing. It's the higher notes on the piano. But the treble clef, as well as, we'll talk about this in a minute, those help us to know what pitches are on the lines and spaces of that staff. So again, the treble clef, you can see I've circled them all. Whoops, let me get to the next question. Circle measure 6 in orange. Now the measures are separated by bar lines, and you can see that I've highlighted those in blue. Again, you can see that this first line or stanza is only the piano. Nobody's singing, so we don't have the singer's line above it like we do right here. It's just the piano. So this is measure 1. There's a bar line. Now we have measure 2. There's a bar line. Measure 3. Now, in a lot of music, so that we don't have to go through and count every measure, they give us measure numbers sporadically throughout the music. Sometimes they're in a square, sometimes they're circled. Right here, we just see the number 4 above measure 4. And you can see, again, this second stanza, we have soprano, alto, tenor, bass. These are all of the voice parts. And then we have the piano part right here. So all of this is measure 4. And we know that because it's all connected. Do you see this line that connects them? It doesn't connect to down here. It only connects these. So that's all measure 4. Here's our bar line. This is all measure 5. Here's a bar line. I've circled measure 6. Now, if you would have just circled measure 6 up here, I would have counted that correct. But I wanted to show you that all of this is measure 6. Measure 6 for the sopranos and altos, measure 6 for the tenors and basses, and then measure 6 for the piano part. Then as you keep going, you can see here they have measure 7 marked for you. They mark those numbers so that, let's say I want you to go to measure 15. You don't have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way through. You can go to the closest number and count from there. All right, so that is measure numbers. How many measures are in this example? Again, our bar lines separate our measures. You can see I have them marked. Measure 1 goes to this bar line. Measure 2 goes to this bar line. Measure 3 to this bar line, and 4 to that bar line, and so forth. You can see, let me move myself here out of the way. Measure 5, measure 6, measure 7, and then measure 8. So we have 8 measures in this example. I had you circle the breath marks in yellow. These are suggestions from who wrote the music or arranged the music for when to take a breath. Now, that's not the only time you can take a breath, obviously. If you need a breath, we want you to take a breath and not pass out. But these are suggestions for when it is recommended. So I have them circled in yellow. Again, I have it zoomed in right here so you can see it a little bit better. It looks like little apostrophes or commas. And you can see that they have one here, as well as they have breath marks here. So we would sing, dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, breath. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way, breath. So we're not breathing right here, dashing through the snow, and we're not breathing right there. We're waiting till here. So those are breath marks, and you'll see them all throughout music. All right, the tempo marking. The tempo marking shows how fast or how slow to take a piece of music. It's always marked at the very beginning of a song, but it can also change in the middle, just like our time signature. So you'll see I've circled it in blue up here, allegro. You don't really need to know this quarter note equals approximately 112 beats per minute. Just know that the higher that number, the faster it is. And there's all different tempo markings. If you look by my door, underneath the flag, I have tempo markings over there, and it tells you how fast. For example, presto is very fast. Grave or largo is very slow. So you'll see those tempo markings if you look underneath the flag by my door, but that's where you find it. And again, it can change throughout the music, just like the time signature. Here are the tempo markings that I mentioned. Some of these are over by my door, some of them are not, but this just kind of gives you an idea of what they could be. I'll let you look through those. We've got, I don't know that I've ever seen prestissimo. I have seen presto, very fast, allegro fast, moderate. Andante is like a good walking pace. Adagio is slow. Lento or largo is even slower, and grave is the slowest. All right, the dynamic markings in purple. Here are the dynamic markings. Dynamics tell us how loud or how soft the music is to be played or sung. Just like the tempo markings, they can change throughout the piece. The dynamics are something that's going to change the most often. So you can see that our song starts with MF right there. Again, I have it a little bit bigger so you can see it easier over here. That means medium loud. The Italian word for that is mezzo forte. These signs are on my wall above the yellow risers. So you can see those. And I also have them on the next, whoops, I skipped, on this page. This is what I have on my wall as well. But you can see the Italian word. You can also see the definition. Sometimes you'll see a symbol that looks like this. Crescendo, that means we're gradually getting louder. So we start soft and then we're gradually getting louder. The opposite, decrescendo, it starts big, it gets small. We start loud and then we're gradually getting softer. Those are most of the dynamic markings that you might see in our music. I asked the question, what measure does the choir begin to sing? So in order to find that out, we need to look for where the words start. Okay, they start right here, but how do we know what measure that is? Remember earlier we talked about measures. Here's our first measure number that they give us, measure number 4. We know that this is measure 4 up till this bar line, so that makes this measure 5. How many beats are in a measure? We talked about this earlier. You have to look at the time signature. Here it is a little bit bigger. That top number tells us how many beats are in a measure. So there's 4. The name of this song, some of you guys wrote Jingle Bells, which is right here. The actual name of this entire song is up here at the very top, Nutcracker Jingles. It tells us this is for SATB, soprano, alto, tenor, and bass voices, and piano. You can also see this was arranged by Chuck Bridwell. The words and music were written by, additional music from, by. It gives us all the information at the top of the page here. So that's where you would look. This, why they have that there, sometimes we might have a medley of songs, like for example, if we have a Christmas Carol medley, and that's what the song title is. Well, a medley means it's several different pieces put together to make one song. So maybe we start with Jingle Bells, and then the next carol that we sing within that carol collection is Santa Claus is Coming to Town. They would mark it right here. Here's where Jingle Bells is. And then when we start singing Santa Claus is Coming to Town, they would put that right above, just like they did Jingle Bells, so that we can see, oh, this is where we start singing the next carol. But that's not the name of the whole song. The name of the whole song is here at the top of the page. All right, this is where a lot of us struggled, and that was knowing our note values and how many beats they get. A lot of you did really well on this. Where we got kind of confused is down here, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. So you can see here we have a whole note. It tells you it gets 4 beats. All this information is on my cabinet doors over by your binders for choir. You can see all of this information. So again, whole note gets 4 beats. This is really for my elementary kiddos, how we would count that ta, you may remember. In choir and in band and so forth, we count using numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The half note looks like a whole note, but it has a stem going up. It gets 2 beats. If I were to add a dot here, that makes it a dotted half note, and it would get 3 beats. But I didn't put that on there. The quarter note looks just like a half note, but the circle is filled in. It gets 1 beat. Now here's where it can get tricky. Our eighth notes, a lot of times we see them beamed together like this. We see 1 bar or beam on top. If we took that away, it would look like 2 quarter notes. But if we disconnect these, that bar no longer has the other note to hold it up, so it falls down into a flag, just like this. So you can see I have my eighth notes as a pair or a group of 2. You can also see what they look like when there's just 1. Now we need a pair of eighth notes to get 1 full beat. So if I were to cut that in half and I took this eighth note away, we would only have half a beat. So remember, we need 2 eighth notes to equal 1 beat. 1 eighth note only gets half of a beat. Similarly, with 16th notes, we have 4 notes that are beamed together with 2 beams or bars on top. Just like with the eighth notes, if we separate them, that beam or bar falls down into flags. And you can see that I show 1/16 note gets a quarter of a beat. So we need 4/16 notes together to equal 1 full beat. If we only have 1/16 note, it only gets a quarter of a beat. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on the rest over here. You can see at the top, we have a whole rest. It looks like an upside down hat. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute. But just like the whole note gets 4 beats, a whole rest gets 4 beats. The half note looks like a hat. I remember the difference because half starts with an H, just like hat starts with an H. So they get 2 beats. Here's our quarter rest, gets 1 beat each. Here's our eighth rests that get half a beat, just like our eighth notes, and then 16th rests. Again, we're not going to go too much into detail on those. Now, I mentioned we were going to come back to the whole rest and the half rest. Here's how you tell the difference when it's on the lines and spaces. It's a little hard to tell. The half rest, remember I said it looks like a hat. It is on the 3rd line. So you can see if we count 1, 2, 3, there's our hat. It's a half rest and it gets 2 beats. Now the whole rest is on the 4th line and it hangs down. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And our upside down hat rests on that line. So that whole rest gets 4 beats. That's how you tell the difference between those two rests. The half rest is on the 3rd line, sitting like a hat. The whole rest is on the 4th line, sitting upside down. A couple more things that I wanted to go over. This double bar line, you can see there's 1 bar line and then there's a thicker one. That marks the end of the song. Song's over. If there's 2 dots in front of it, that's a repeat sign, and that means we're going to repeat what we just sang. These 2 symbols are tricky because they look exactly alike, except this curved line connects 2 notes that are different. This curved line connects 2 notes that are exactly the same. They're in the same space. When it connects 2 lines that are exactly the same, it's a tie. That means that we would sing or play, if we were playing, we would sing this note and hold it there. So instead of clapping twice, 1, 2, for those 2 quarter notes, I would clap and hold it for that second beat. We don't clap or sing again. We don't see a whole ton of that in choir music. What we would normally see more often is this one that connects 2 notes that are different. This is a slur. It connects 2 notes that are on different lines or spaces, and it means that we're going to sing or play that smoothly or legato. So instead of singing, what's an example? Jingle all the way. You can hear how I had some space in between those. Now I'm going to make it smooth. Jingle all the way. So that's what that means. Slur means we are making it smooth. All right. That is all I have for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. We will practice finding all of these things in our music as we are going through learning our music. But again, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thanks for watching this. I hope you learned something.